I'm going to give you the tip that you need to rock your presentations to camera. Okay, are you ready for this? There, practice. That's it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Don't you wish it was that easy? Wouldn't it be amazing if all it took was just the repetitive practice of something to be absolutely amazing at it? We will come back to practice because it is an important part, but I'm going to step you through some of the tips that I use to deliver great talks to camera. Now, I'm used to a view that looks something similar to this. This is the Darling Harbour Theatre inside the International Convention Centre in Sydney. And if it wasn't for COVID-19, I probably would have been back there a week or so ago delivering a Microsoft conference talk. This theatre can seat 2,500 people. That is 5,000 eyeballs potentially looking at me on the stage. And yet, this is my comfort zone. I love being in a room like this and connecting with an audience. And even seasoned speakers who are used to filling big auditoriums will tell you that if you put them in front of one of these, it's a whole different ballgame. There is something about this cold, hard, plastic little dot looking back at you and nothing else that can freak you the heck out. And I wonder why. Maybe it is because we see something like that and the flight or fight nature of our system goes into overdrive. Because when we're used to a single eyeball or two eyeballs staring at us, the body kind of goes, okay, this probably is not going to be a good experience. And so I'm going to talk you through a few steps to make this a more enjoyable experience, to be able to relax a bit in front of the camera and to deliver some great talks. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the shot. So how we frame things, how we get looking good on camera. I'll talk a little bit about your content, but we won't go into this too much because there are a lot of talks in this conference and in other sessions as well that will tell you about how to create a good conference talk. And I know Michelle's doing a session later on about death by PowerPoint, so there will be a lot more in that kind of space as well. Then we'll talk about your delivery. So how do you get up and deliver a talk to camera from your home office? And finally, we will come back to practice and I will give you some tips to look out for when you're practicing your talks to a camera. First of all, the all-important shot. And if we go back to a picture of just myself on camera, let me talk you through a couple of points. So let's start with clothing. What are you going to wear when you're on camera? A couple of considerations here. One being understand what your background is going to be. So there was a talk that I did last week where the presenters turned around and said, we have a custom background image that we would like you to use. Turned out that custom image was mainly blue. Blue is one of the colors I like to wear on camera. I like it. It's nice and bold. It suits me. And so I made sure that I wasn't wearing blue on camera because it wasn't going to work with that background. Similarly, you also want to take a look at the lighting conditions and what it looks like in your room, because sometimes things like reds or a white shirt or patterns and textures can come across really weird on camera, the way that the lighting plays with them and just the way that the camera deals with lighting in general. Also, it's really important to be comfortable. Dress appropriately for the audience that you're talking to, but I'm not kidding. I went through 3 different wardrobe changes this morning because the 2 shirts that I was going to wear, I put them on this morning and I went, nah, that's not working for me today. So get comfortable with what you're going to be presenting in. Now, I mentioned lighting. Lighting is super important, and the better you can get with your lighting, it will just make a big difference to your presentations. I have to battle with the fact that I have some blinds behind me. Now, those blinds mean that I'm getting a light source from behind me that can do weird things with the camera, because the camera tends to want to darken out what's in the foreground and zero in on that bright light. So I've always got to have my blinds tilted. I angle my shots so I'm more in the corner of my room, and I have a very bright light above the camera, my key light, that is shining down on me. And if you're using lighting, watch with your glasses, because that's where you can get reflections. Now, this isn't a thing I deal with on stages because I don't wear my glasses on stage. I only wear my glasses when I'm sitting in front of a computer screen, and I use my screens when I'm talking. So I have to watch that. And when I used a Logitech camera, there was kind of a trick that I learned about sort of tipping my head slightly and peering over the top of my glasses. Not so it looked like I was being judgmental, but just enough to reflect any glare that I was getting. Makeup. Now, if you are somebody who presents from the form of a human body with flesh on it, a little bit of makeup can go a long way, even if you're not used to wearing it. And I'm not saying that you need to go on TikTok and find all the tips and learn how to do all the pro things, but seriously, even something like baby powder, a little bit of baby powder on your shiny spots will just stop that reflection from the light and will make you look a little bit more human and less washed out. If you are someone who's used to wearing makeup, especially foundation, one of the tips that I use on camera is a green-based primer. Now, this isn't the TikTok makeup tips, I promise, but a green-based foundation primer helps bring down the redness because redness is one of the things that cameras really bring out as well. So that's just something I do on camera. Next is your framing. Where are you in the shot? So you're put inside this nice rectangle box and you have things either side of you and you have depth behind you and you have the space above your head. Now, generally, producers like a nice tight shot. They like it to look like you're being interviewed by the TV news and you've got this sort of head and shoulders shot, and different producers will argue about whether or not they want more or less headspace. The majority of guests that I interview are too low in their seat and we've got too much room above their head. It's a little bit of personal preference. Sometimes the producers that you're working with will guide you on the best way to do that. But that's just one thing to be aware of in terms of how you've framed stuff. And then also take a look at what's in your background. So I've got a few interesting things on my shelves. I've got Dundee the dinosaur sitting on my shelf, but I've also just been a bit careful about what I'm showing. If there's any sort of licensed stuff I'm not allowed to show when I'm doing my work, we have to watch out for that. And also if there's any light glare reflections of things in the background, and of course making sure that there's nothing in the background that you don't want to be showing, personal information. I'm not going to say that any of you write down passwords and put them on post-it notes in the background, like none of that. When you're also thinking about being on shot, where do you have your things positioned? So you're going to have a camera, obviously. You might have some slides somewhere that you need to be looking at and referencing, and you might also have maybe some handwritten notes. So where are all of those things in relation to the camera so that you can glance from one thing to another and try and maintain an eye line to the camera, and we'll come back to that point with delivery. Next, I want you to make sure that you have practiced the technology that you're using and any transitions that you need to make. You don't always have the support of a fabulous backstage crew like Jack and Amy to mix different shots between you and your slides that you're presenting. So you might be the one that has to share your screen, unshare your screen, do those kind of things. So just make sure that you've used the technology enough to practice those transitions in and out when you need them. Another good point is sitting versus standing. So I don't know about you, but when I get up on a stage and talk, I don't sit down. I'm standing up. My diaphragm's nice and straight. I can breathe and I'm free to walk around the stage and burn off a little bit of energy. When you sit down, it's a very different sort of energy level. And we often find that people who are used to talking on stage, or people who need a little bit of boost of energy, when they sit down and deliver a talk, it's quite a different experience. So if the sitting down isn't working for you, don't sit down, stand up. Put your camera on a tripod and actually present from a standing mode rather than a sitting mode. And I do that occasionally, depending on the conference too. So that's a little bit about framing and shot. Now let's talk about your content. What are we going to say? And is there a difference to what we do when we're presenting on camera? People have the attention span of a goldfish, primarily. And we talk about Zoom fatigue and about how the online webinar space is hard because it's hard to concentrate on this stuff for a long time. The thing is that when you first get started in your talk, you have everybody's attention. You haven't lost them to social media or their emails or whatever else they're doing on their second screen. You have their full attention at the very start of your talk. Don't waste that opportunity. Hit them with something memorable. And this is something I encourage if you're on stage as well. It's really important to start your talk off strong. So how did I start my talk? I told you that the only thing that you needed to do was practice, which hopefully got a bit of a laugh. And then we started talking about how webcams are like tigers, right? So we break the ice. We start off with something interesting enough to make the presenters go, this sounds like it's going to be a fun talk. I'm going to hang around. And I've got their attention. And I also mentioned about notes. Now, this is a copy of the notes that I used when I was scripting the first part of my talk. My process of putting a talk together involves bullet pointing things out in OneNote, shifting things around and grouping them and putting them in a bit of a logical flow, and then breaking them down to something that looks similar to this. This gives me my talking points. I know the different things that I want to hit when I'm talking about this section, but I don't have it fully scripted out. You see, you know your content. You know it well enough that if I ask you to talk about one part of that content, you know it well enough to talk as if we're having a conversation off the top of your head. You just need to remember the different points that you wanted to hit and what order they were in. And so the next step of me taking this content was to get the words that are in bold on the sheet, write them on a piece of paper in very large font and stick them in front of my laptop screen that is just sitting underneath this camera that you can't see. That's how I remembered to hit all of the points that I've just talked about without looking at a single slide or without having my slides on screen. So as well as practicing your content, don't think that you need to have it repetitive, verbatim, every sentence perfect. You will focus more of your energy on trying to remember that stuff and deliver it perfectly than you will putting energy into why you're talking about the things that you're talking about. So get those points, put them somewhere nice near the camera where you can glance at them without looking away too far, and practice your content beforehand. You know what you're talking about. It's going to be great. Okay, next steps, your delivery. So how do we do this darn talking to camera bit? I'm going to tell you, let's go back to a full shot of me. Loosen up. Don't take yourself so seriously. It's okay to relax and enjoy this. Look, I promise you that if you deliver the worst talk you've ever delivered in your life, nobody in your audience will die. Now, that's a bit of a bold statement. I guess technically there's some statistic that tells me that 0.X% of the population are at the stage of their life where they're at risk of a heart attack. So I guess there is a slight chance that it might happen. I've been in the tech industry for over 20 years. I've been speaking for a while now. It has never happened to me yet, and I don't think it ever will. So relax and loosen up before you go on camera. Do something fun. Watch some funny videos, like dance around your house with the music on. If you are going into a session where they have intro music, and a lot of these online events will have this, we'll put up this intro card and the please wait starting soon and this like elevating music. Like normally the presenter is in a studio area. You are connected. They know that your sound and your lighting is good. And honestly, I sit there and have a boogie. Like seriously, like Kermit the Frog style, rock that intro music. You're not on screen yet. It is a great way to get rid of some of the nerves and energy. And then when you go live, you start with a smile on your face. I mentioned about Eyeline earlier on. So Eyeline is literally where you are looking. And the strange thing about cameras is where you need to look might not feel very natural at all. You need to become friends with this little dark black dot. And you need to stare right down the center of it. It feels as strange as heck. It really does. It's not a natural thing for us humans to be looking at. But when you lean into it, when you get close to your audience and you look down that camera lens, you are looking straight at your people because they are looking back at you and that's what they see. It does take practice, but it's just one of those things. The more you can become comfortable with it, the greater your presentations will be. And there's a couple of good tips with this, and I know that Rebecca uses one of them. Make it fun. Put googly eyes on the top of your camera. Put a headband with dog ears on it if you want, right? Like, make it a little bit lighter and don't stress so much about this little piece of plastic. Another thing when you're talking is remember that you're talking to somebody. You're talking to one person. You don't have a room full of humans staring back at you, nodding or smiling or clapping or laughing or giving you that feedback. So instead of thinking that you're talking to the camera or you're trying to repeat something that you've rehearsed, think about the one person that you're talking to and talk to them. They're the person who has come to your talk. They've read your abstract. They want to know what you have to say. And if they were here in the room sitting next to you, what would you say to them? Have a conversation with that one person. Another tip that we use on stage is we watch our body language. And so what are we doing with our body? Because that conveys intention, it conveys energy, it conveys attitude, a lot more than just our voices do. And some of it can get lost on camera. So one of the tips for that is there is a saying in the newspaper business called above the fold. And in the olden days, when newspapers used to be a lot bigger, they would fold them in half and put them on the newsstands in a stack. And when they stacked them in the newsstands, you would only ever see the top part of the front page, and anything on the bottom part of the front page would get lost under the fold. And so anything above the fold is premium territory. This is where the big advertising spend is, the big headlines that we want to get out. All that stuff is above the fold so people can see it. One of the things that you might have picked up with how I speak that you don't often see in online presenters is where my hands are. So I use my hands to help with my body language, and I'm very conscious of making sure that my hands are above the fold. If I was on stage and I was using my hands and my body language, you can't see what I'm doing with my hands when they're normally at my natural waist and torso level. It just doesn't work. So again, feels really strange, but if you can get used to doing your hand movements up here near your face where the camera is going to pick them up, raise your hands like you just don't care. It will add more energy and enthusiasm into your talks. And just on that, with energy, the camera sucks energy like nobody's business. I don't normally talk this animated when I'm having a discussion with people, probably not even when I'm on stage, to be honest. But there's something about being on this camera that it just drains the energy and the enthusiasm. So you literally have to exaggerate it, ramp it up a little bit, get excited about it. Actually, it's acting. And when I say acting, I don't want you to think that you have to come up with something that is not you. Okay, we're not doing a fake acting persona like you're a character in a movie here. But you are certainly projecting and sometimes even using what we call a persona. And so find out who you are on stage or when you present. I had a colleague who said something to me that has stuck with me, that when I talk to people, when I'm doing presentations, I'm very much Auntie Sonia. So Auntie Sonia is the one that is saying, it's okay, you've got this. I'm going to teach you some stuff and it's all going to be great. And so Auntie Sonia is really my on-camera persona. Some people are the comedians. Now, I have a little bit of humor in my talks, but not as much as some people. I'm not the funny guy. Like, I'm not the humorous, everything is a joke, bring out all the puns. That's just not my style. And it wouldn't feel comfortable or authentic or natural for me to do that. And finally, with our delivery, I want you to watch your pausing and your pacing. Without having people in the room, it can be very easy for this monologue to run away with you and for you just to carry on with the next point and the next point and the next point without taking a breath. You need to remember your audience has not heard this talk before. Their brains needs time to absorb it and for them to get the point, especially if you make something funny or you're really hitting home a memorable point. So use the pauses when you want to land an important point. It gives it weight, it lets your audience let it sink in, and it gives their brains a bit of a pause before what comes next. And then just generally watch your pacing. So not too fast, not a really slow death march monologue, and feel free to mix it up. Mix up that pacing when you deliver your talk. Sometimes it is all cool and exciting and you want to go, yeah, this is amazing. And then sometimes you need to pull it back a little bit. And that change of pace in your talk will certainly make it more interesting and capture people's attentions. Okay, next step. Practice. So I promised you that I would come back to this. And when I talk about practice, I mean deliberate practice. Let me explain what that means. There's a really great book called Atomic Habits by James Clear if you're interested more in the science of deliberate practice. But basically what it is, it's about not necessarily doing something over and over again, but finding the next thing that you need to improve and practicing that bit until you get it. So when you're talking, I want you to do some recordings and watch your recordings. It's weird watching yourself speak. I do chat moderations on sessions that I've pre-recorded where I had to listen to myself for an hour speaking while I'm doing the chat moderation. I don't think you ever get used to it, but I promise you if you do and you review those recordings, you will make yourself a better speaker. So the things in particular that I want you to look out for, do a recording, watch it back, choose the next one thing that you are going to deliberately practice to try and improve in your speaking. Here are some of the things I want you to watch out for. Rocking or shifting your weight. I saw a speaker who was on a stage in front of a camera and he developed this weight shifting side to side rocking through his entire talk. And by the end of it, is it driving you crazy yet? I'll stop. So whether it's side to side or it's back or forward, this is how nerves come out. It's a physical sign that you're nervous and that energy has got to go somewhere. So rocking and shifting your weight is something that can happen, or the opposite can happen and we can freeze like a statue in front of the camera because we just think, oh my gosh, I'm on air, people are looking at me. It's this kind of nervous, I think it's part of the fight or flight, like if I stay here, the tiger's not going to see me kind of thing. So watch out in particular for what your body's doing so you can learn to relax it. A bit of movement is natural. Just watch for these 2 points. Next, your verbal fillers and repetition. What are you filling the silence with? And I don't mean silence because you've forgotten what you were going to say, but usually it's just the what is my next sentence is enough for speakers to do the ums and the ahs. And if it's not ums and ahs, you might find that you've fallen into a pattern of repetition. There are a few speakers that you catch who might start every couple of sentences with so. That's a really common one. So watch and see if you've got any verbal fillers that you use or any repetitive words that you use and get used to catching those in your head and not saying them. Because honestly, you don't need to fill in every second with a word. It's perfectly okay to pause and have a little bit of silence until your next sentence. And if so, at the start of every sentence feels comfortable, get used to saying it in your head and then carrying on with the rest of your sentence. Nobody will notice. It's one of those extra words that we just put in for padding, and we often don't even know that we're doing it. Then facial expressions, including blinking. What do you do with your face when you talk? I've got a piece of hair at the moment that's really annoying me, so I'm sorry if it's bugged you. I keep brushing my hair out of my face, but it can be rolling your eyes, making a weird face. And when you watch it, you go, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was doing that. I've got a bit of a habit sometimes of blinking too much. I watch my recordings and I feel like I was blinking the whole time. And I know people who are kind of the opposite, that they sort of freeze up in front of the camera and it's like they don't blink at all. So they're like staring at you for the next 40 minutes and it doesn't look like they've blinked at all, like we're in a staring competition. So those are 2 other little tips to watch for. And I want you to always be learning. I catch myself on this stuff all the time after years of doing it, especially as we've moved to more remote with these sessions having to be in front of camera. I'm just thrilled that you've taken a Saturday to devote some time to hear from people on how you can improve yourself being a speaker. Don't ever lose that enthusiasm for learning. There are a million great talks and TEDx talks and books about how to do public speaking and like millions of search results hits. just soak it all up. I don't want you to get overwhelmed with it, but I just want you to know that even people who do this all the time, even people who do this as part of their job, I love nothing more than grabbing another book or listening to another great speaker. And the more speakers you watch, the more conferences you sit as an attendee or webinars you watch, you pick up something from those other speakers, whether it's good or bad, about what to do or not to do. So always be learning. I don't think we ever get to a point where we have perfected it and there's nothing left to learn. And finally, I just want to end by saying, enjoy it. It is such a privilege to be able to do this. There is more opportunity than ever before. You don't have to wait for a conference to be in town with a spare stage for you to go and speak on. And you don't even need to wait for an event to be on for you to grab a camera, record something and stick it up on YouTube. There is so much opportunity there. And I want you to develop a love for this. Look, if you decide to get into the speaking circuits or you're doing stuff online and you decide that it's really not for you, it's not your space, that's fine too. But it is so much fun. You'll meet some amazing people. You'll get some great feedback. And all it takes is that one person to reach out to you on social media and say, I loved your talk. I tried that thing you suggested. Makes your day. You will be a speaker for life. And that is the end of my session. I am Sonia Cuff. You can find me on Twitter at Sonia Cuff. Thank you very much for joining me on a Saturday. I'm going to do a very random thing that I don't normally do after a conference talk, and that's go back to the housework. I think I'm cleaning out my fridge this afternoon. So online life certainly is a lot weirder than what I'm used to with conferences, but we're leaning into it, and I'm glad that you joined me today. Thank you.